Bonjour à vous, les curieux de nouvelles technologies et d'applications mobiles. Aujourd'hui, j'ai le plaisir d'interviewer Chris Bent et on va parler de cornichons. Plus sérieusement, on va parler de Pickles, sa société qu'il a créée il y a de ça quelques années, qui produit une application mobile pour partager des moments durant lesquels les gens dessinent ensemble. Hi Chris,
Hi, Sarah.
how are
I
you?
understood some of those words.
That's good. Okay, because you are learning French. That's correct.
Wait, wait.
Okay. And how do you learn French?
I actually took some classes right when I got here. They were pretty intense. Everyone was there for 3 hours a day, 3 days a week. And that was like a basic overview. And then I try and listen to French music. And I also watch French shows with the subtitles on. And I just have started using some mobile apps, actually.
Okay, so what kind of music are you listening?
What is her name? It's the sister of Romeo Elvis.
Okay.
He's like a French rapper, and they have a family. I forget her name right now, but
No
it's
worries.
great. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna do some research. Okay, I'm curious. So thank you very much to be with me today. So as I mentioned, I'm writing a book to help tech entrepreneurs to be better in marketing and handle the marketing to launch their app, mobile app mostly. And in my book, I'm talking about your company, Pickles, because I find it is one good way to reconnect humans. And I like to know more about how did you get this idea, and for what reason you decided to start this business.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it all started in April of 2016. So coming up on 4 years ago. And that was the first time, well, I guess it actually started much before then because everything is a building up of your experiences. And for my whole life, I've always been very active. I've always needed something in my hands, something to do. I was drawing all the time, just creating things. And so naturally, I went into sports as a kid. And then in high school, I started mowing lawns in my neighborhood. And that was really my first taste of entrepreneurship. And that really kind of planted the seeds of just taking ideas and executing them in my mind. And so from then, I was just so passionate about it because I couldn't understand why someone would want to work for someone else bagging groceries when you could be doing your own thing. And there was so many opportunities and so much, it was just the most fulfilling thing that I could ever imagine doing is entrepreneurship. And so I started my landscaping company, and then in college, I started a solar company. And then I started for the first time working for a family friend who had actually just launched a Kickstarter campaign. So I was the third employee there, and I was still feeling very entrepreneurial because it was a small team. We were doing everything. I was in charge of sales and business development and marketing. And we got to grow that team to over 25 people and build out a factory in Portland, Maine, where we were making all of these products. And when we were going through there, I applied for an incubator in Boston called Mass Challenge. And we got into that and went through the program. And I made a lot of great friends and good connections while networking there. And one of my friends called me up about a month after the program and asked if I would join his company because he had just got $1 million in funding from a venture capital investor. And I was like, wow, this sounds like a good challenge. I've never tried to sell software before.
Mm-hmm.
I've never worked at a venture funded company. And so I jumped at the opportunity because I think it was going to be a great learning experience. And it certainly was. But once I got into that company, I felt all of that creative ability and creative expression just kind of leave because we were funded by these investors who wanted to make sure that they were getting their investment back. Yeah. And so everything we do had to be logged in Salesforce. We had to call 100 people a day, book 10 meetings, deliver 10 demos, log every call, every voicemail. Everything was just metrics.
So and you have been learned to sell.
Somewhat, yeah. I would say I got over my fear of cold calling for sure, and I definitely wasn't comfortable just picking up the phone and talking to someone. But now I am much more comfortable doing that and learning kind of what is entailed in a sales process. But locking myself in a phone booth for 4 hours a day when it's a beautiful sunny day outside, and I'm just calling these people, leaving these voicemails, and it was torture for me. And it really was lacking all of that creative expression that I found entrepreneurship was scratching. Now, at the time, I didn't know that entrepreneurship was kind of scratching my creative itch. I just did it because I liked it and it was fulfilling. But I felt when I was in this job, this distinct lack of creativity. And so that's when I started researching creativity and thinking like, well, is this just something that happens to everyone? You get old and you stop being creative and you go to your 9-to-5 job and then you retire and then maybe you can start painting then. But that didn't really appeal to me. And so I started researching, and really the only creative thing that I could say I did was go to those paint nights where you're drinking wine and you're painting the Eiffel Tower and they're telling you how to paint it. And I like doing that, but I can't be drunk every time I want to be creative. It's easier, but it's not as sustainable. And so that's really what kind of started the idea for Pickles, was a way to make it as easy as possible for anyone to just scratch that creative itch, because creativity really is a muscle. The more you use it, the more you have. It doesn't go anywhere, but you have to practice actually using it, because everybody has ideas, but very few people actually do things with those ideas. Yeah. And so I really began building Pickles as a way to let everyone just be more creative and just less passively consuming things, more actively creating them.
Most people are pretty shy when it comes to share what they have created. So how do you deal with that to convince your users to draw? to draw?
Yeah, so that is a great question, because that was one of the things that I struggled with. I am not a painter, I'm not an artist, I'm not a drawer. I went to business school, not art school. And so having a blank white piece of paper and a million colors, it feels like a creativity test. And I'm definitely going to fail it because I don't know how to draw or paint or anything. And so it is very difficult to get started. And I think getting started is the hardest part. Like, I've heard of other illustrators who will just get a new notebook and then write the number on every page, just so it's not a blank page anymore. It has a little bit of ink on there. And so then it breaks down a bit of the barriers to getting started. But one of the artists who I met here in Montreal, she gave me some great advice. She said, real artists ship. And you just have to push it out there, and you have to know that what you see in your mind's eye and that like perfect idea for a project that you have, it will never manifest that way in real life. But at some point in time, you just have to say, all right, this is what it's going to be, and throw it out into the world, because you don't get better by keeping improving on the same project that you're doing. Like, the Mona Lisa was not just 100 iterations of the Mona Lisa, and that's all Da Vinci did. He did tons of work, and the more work that you can produce, the better you're going to get, because then you can get feedback on it and you can improve for the next one. But at some point in time, you just have to push it out there. And like, you can see some of the art that I make in the background here really as well, nice. Out of business cards. And so these are all kind of business cards that I've collected throughout my life and through networking events. I have a lot more pieces, but the first business card art that I ever made took me 15 months to do, because I had no idea how to do it. I didn't know what I was doing. And quite frankly, I was scared to say I'm done, because when you say I'm done, it is telling the world that this is the best I can do. And in your mind, you know that you can do better. And so it almost takes a bit of humility, a bit of checking your ego to say, you know what? I know this isn't the best that I can do, but it's good enough and it's ready to ship, and I'm going to start working on the next one. And I think that is incredibly important for anyone in entrepreneurship or art or anyone who has ideas that they're doing.
One thing you said regarding the conversation you got with the artist in Montreal make me think about one talk I saw with Jim Carrey a few years ago. He went to one college and he was a guest. He has been honored. I don't know what exactly, but at the end of this speech, he presented one paint he made, and he said what is important is to consider your eyes are not made only to see but to project. And when we draw, finally we project something. It's an accumulation of the things we see and the way the brain is processing it and the way we give it. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, I think that, yeah, your eyes, it can almost be a process. So when you start out, you don't know what it will be in the end. And I think it just takes a bit of creative confidence to get started in the first place, not knowing where the end goal is, but just knowing that this is something that I should be working on. This is the mission that I'm trying to accomplish, but the steps along the way aren't going to be solved. And so that's even with drawing, sometimes it helps people think and unclog mental blocks that they might have, because you'll draw and it just gets things to start flowing. Because I think people can get really stuck in stasis, in not doing anything, because they overthink that first move. And that first move is always the most difficult. And so if you can just get started and even try and make it look terrible, but just doing something, it is a feedback loop. I think to the quote that you were saying, because your eyes now see what you're doing and then your brain is connecting with them, and then it gets the creative wheels turning, really like a flywheel. When people just try and think and plan and write and just like have everything that they think is going to happen, and then they actually start and they realize, oh wow, I was wrong about all of this, then they've kind of just wasted all of that planning. Where I think I could be better in the planning, because I oftentimes am just like action, let's do. And then it's like, oh, we just wasted a lot of time and a lot of money going that route. So I could be better at the planning, but I think that's what is important is getting feedback, getting things out there, taking in that feedback, actually listening to people, but not beating yourself up if everyone is telling you it's shit, because it might be shit now, but that doesn't mean it'll be shit in a week, a month, or a year from now.
Okay, and your company is based in Montreal, that's correct?
Yes.
So why did you choose Montreal? It's so French.
It is so French. Do I not look so French? No. Yeah, so I am originally from Boston, and I was going through the MIT Creative Arts Competition, and one of the companies who was sponsoring it is based here in Montreal, called Mentorly, and they were sponsors for Startup Fest. And in 2018, it was the first year they were doing Art Up Fest, which was the art portion of Startup Fest. So Mentorly and that team invited everyone going through the MIT Creative Arts Competition to come to Art Up Fest. And I didn't know at the time, but I was the only person to actually take advantage of that free ticket. And in coming up to Montreal, that was the first time I really got a sense for the creativity, the entrepreneurial landscape, and just the ecosystem that existed here. Because I had been to Montreal 2 times before, but it was just for the weekend to party because it's also a great. Really, I had no idea that aspect of Montreal existed, and it was only a 5-hour drive from Boston. And so I knew one other person in Montreal, and he was going to be working abroad, doing one of those remote years where you travel with a bunch of other freelancers for 3 months, going a different place every month. And he was subletting his apartment. So it was honestly the easiest move that I've ever done. He just left his keys with a friend, took his clothes. I got the keys from his friend, moved my clothes in. He had his Metro card there, his gym membership. His life was pretty much set up. And so I just checked in, and that's what got me to move here for the first 3 months. And that was honestly one of the best experiences of my life. And so after he moved back, I started planning how I would move up to Montreal more permanently. Yeah. But nice. It really is an amazing community for digital creativity, digital projects. Yeah. There's a ton of support for the arts here, and it really does feel like a very inclusive community. Everyone, it feels like a small community, but there's just so much opportunity, and everyone is looking to help. A lot of people will just be willing to grab coffee and talk and see what they can do. And so it provides for an amazing sandbox and room to really see and grow your product in your company. Because being in Boston, I remember I was telling my friend that I was moving to Montreal, and he was like,
"What?
You're in Boston right now. You realize this is the tech hub on the East Coast. It doesn't make sense to move anywhere except San Francisco. Why would you not move to San Francisco?" And I was like, well, I would spend all of the money that I have on rent that first month, so I wouldn't be able to stay there for very long. And B, that's just getting in the rat race and just doing what everyone has always done. And I think a big thing about business and life in general is challenging the status quo and not just taking things as assumed knowledge, but thinking what's best for you, doing tests, figuring out where you should be, and then going for it.
That's good. I love this the way you are thinking, and how you made your decision, especially to move to Montreal and instead going to the Silicon Valley or staying in Boston. Because by doing that, you found a way to create your own opportunities according to what you needed and what you wanted. And many entrepreneurs, when they start, they want to go at the same place. They are in competition with a lot of people doing the same thing. So that's pretty hard to find a way to grow in that context. So as I did recently, I went to Bulgaria. And for me, things are easier because I have less competition. So it's and the way to consider my own experience is based on what I need. And this is what you did. So but this is demanding kind of being more aware about who you are and what do you need to grow. So that's really mature.
Yeah, it is hard to know exactly. And I think at some point in time, you almost just need to make the leap or, have a certain amount of fuck it, let's do it kind of mentality where it's just Bulgaria, sure. I've never been there, but let's check it out. Because honestly, there's so many experiences in this world, so many people to meet, that it's kind of sad when you grow up in the same place and you never leave your hometown and you have that kind of thought in the back of your mind, what if? And that's one of they say the definition of hell is when you die and you meet the person that you could have become. And that is I think what I don't like often think of hell or anything like that, but like the what if is always top of mind. Like, well, what if we did this? What if we did that? What if we moved here? And I think just like constantly having that mindset of thinking about the future and thinking, well, what if we went this way? What if we went that way? And you're making hypotheses, and then you try and prove out these hypotheses. It's just like starting a business, moving anywhere, dating your girlfriend. Like it's all thinking about what could be and then testing it and then moving in that direction, whatever makes most sense for you.
This takes courage. So, well,
Yeah.
okay. So I've got a question. How did you find your first client? And how did you find the way to capitalize on the opportunity to make things happen and have a sustainable business?
Yeah. So to that last point, having a sustainable business is still something that we're working on. So now that we've like laid the foundations, I am actively working to create a repeatable and sustainable sales process and business model. But the first client actually came from a referral, and it was an event happening in Boston called Hub Week, which is a gathering of the city's university researchers, professionals, artists. It's an amazing event to get thinkers and thought leaders and ideas to converge. Actually, the SAT, the Society for Art and Technology here in Montreal, they helped them build out all of these geodesic domes that they had because they were doing parties inside of these domes with light projections on the top of them. And so I got in touch with the executive director there who was interested in the product that I had. And then when one of the sponsors approached her and asked if they knew of any artists who might be able to do a booth activation for them, she thought of me and put us in touch. And so that was the introduction that I got with a company called Mass Mutual. And then we started brainstorming how we could best draw people into the booth, give them this interactive activity to do, but then leave with this cool piece of collaborative art that was created from it.
And so from the beginning, how many users did you get?
From the beginning, zero, because I definitely approached it the wrong way. I was coming at this with my own problem, and I was just like, I just need it built. I need to build it. And then once the first prototype was built, I was like, oh, now I need to actually see who else might be having this problem, who else might want to use this. And so I kind of approached it differently. It was a product in search of a problem. But those first users came from going and getting out into the Boston community and going to networking events, just getting people to use it. And actually, we had originally started building an iOS application. So to get any user, I had to get them to take out their phone, go to the App Store, find Pickles, download it. Oh, wait, you can't download it because your phone is full. All right, delete 3 pictures of your dog. Now download it. Now get on there. And the process, it was so much friction. And that was one of the huge learnings. I was working to build that iOS app for almost 2 years. And then I talked to someone who was like, you should just be building a web application. And then no one needs to download anything, and it works on every device. And it's like, wow, yeah, I should be. And I wish I talked to you 2 years ago, but also I didn't have that experience, that failure of trying to get users and running into all of those roadblocks, which I feel like was necessary to really be confident in the direction that we're heading in right now. And so it was an expensive learning experience, but now being a web application, it's so much more frictionless to get people to start using it. Really makes just getting it in people's hands a lot easier. And especially because we're focusing on the meetings and events space now. If you are at an event, then you can just immediately start using it by typing in a few letters into your browser on your phone instead of all of those other processes. And so now it's much easier to get users, and the trick now is to get active users. So we're actually focusing on businesses and providing this as a tool that they can use to engage with their audiences. So I'm actually more interested in reaching out to these different companies and then saying like, hey, this is a way that you can creatively engage with your audiences and get them to draw and create and express themselves more creatively. And so they are actually the ones ultimately getting the users, but it's their users who are using Pickles. I'm not just trying to drive as many downloads as possible. And because I would also, it's easier to manage and work with a small number of businesses than try and get 99 cents from a million people.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do believe it is the right way to do things now, because there are so much application available on the different stores. And what I see, I feel concerned about the experience. So from the moment you ask people to do a bit of job for you, it's complicated. And the thing is, you have to manage so many things to manage the product on daily basis to make sure people are satisfied. So in your case, the only thing you have to do is just to focus to speak with one person and different companies, and make things happen to serve the users, the end users. That's correct? Did I?
Yeah, exactly. And then it's easier also because getting a company to buy onto this product and engage with their users, they can see the business case for it. They are paying for it with pre-tax revenues and oftentimes their company's revenues, so they don't have as much hesitancy to spend money as a consumer does. Like, it is so hard. I know from my experience, if you ask me to pay 99 cents for an app, it better be a damn good app, because I better be getting a ton of value from it, because it's my money. And when you go from free to any amount of paid on the consumer level, they also expect a level of perfection and polish in that final product that it's hard to, it just takes a while to get there. And so working with businesses, and it's more of a collaborative relationship, I found.
And can you show us a bit of your application? So what it looks like and what kind of people, what kind of drawing people make eventually?
Yeah, absolutely. So I will share my screen really quick.
Thank you. Take your time.
And it should be, do you see?
Yes.
Few people have realized their creative potential. Awesome. So I came across this research done by Adobe when I was just looking into the fact of whether other people were experiencing the same problem as me. So this kind of helped me know that, yes, other people feel like they're not reaching their creative potential. It wasn't me alone. And so I started building out the platform as a collaborative coloring book. That's what I was calling it. And the idea being, instead of one person spending an hour doing a drawing that they didn't know how to do and would probably turn out looking bad, instead 60 people can spend 1 minute doing that same drawing, and it's done in a social and fun way that doesn't require as much time input. So if it looks bad, then you can just stop and you haven't wasted an hour, but you have also done it with a group of people, and there's less pressure to be perfect because you're not actually responsible for the whole image. And that was the original concept for the idea. But then in getting it in people's hands, why user testing is so important in getting feedback, we found that actually open-ended questions were almost more compelling. So in this case, I asked people, how are you feeling today? And then they drew their answers. So it went from a coloring book to almost an audience response platform. And now we can customize the prompts and the colors for anything. Like in this case, I was in Boston and I asked people, are you Democrat or Republican? And it was interesting, people drawing their answers, because you get a sense of a greater sense of kind of their feelings. It doesn't put people in a box for how to express themselves, even though they are drawing in a box. So this is actually a clip from the first activation that we ever did at Hub Week that I was mentioning earlier, where we actually created this mosaic with everybody. And so for that, we took
I don't see the mosaic.
Yeah, do you see that there?
I saw the first slide, but not the second one. The second one.
Okay. Is it not sharing anymore?
It's sharing, but okay. So I see the first one, but on the side I see the other slides, but I don't see them in full screen.
Okay. Do you see the mosaic on the top right corner right now?
No.
Or what do you see on the slideshow?
I only see the list of a slide. Okay. So after the first slide, I see kind of drawings, but I'm not sure if this is.
Let me try and share that again.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay. Technical things, it's okay.
Yeah. Oh, it looks like Keynote. Okay. Here, I'll see. For someone who's starting a technology company, you would think that I might be a little bit better at this. All right.
Nice. Okay, I see it. Yeah, I'm going
to. Okay, this is better?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, so this is the first mosaic that we ever did here in the top right corner. So for it, we took the brand's colors and assigned values to them. So green was wealth, red was love, orange was happiness, blue was family, dark blue was friends. And so we had people coloring them in based on their priorities, with the background image being their number one priority, and then the other 5 circles being their next top 5. So it was almost like a piece of art, but also a data visualization when you knew how it corresponded together.
Nice.
So that's one way of using the platform. We also did this, and you might recognize the bearded wizard in the middle there, because that is the drawing of Ziad that we created from a picture that we made. And then this is an example of another mosaic that we did at a trade show, a digital marketing activation for them to get people engaged, draw their logo, and create this interesting mosaic.
Really nice.
So, yeah.
Okay, so it's time to say goodbye. I'd like to stay with you more, but I know you are a busy entrepreneur and you have so much to do. So, so if you want to talk a bit to our audience about how you contact you, or how they can contact you, and for what reason, and what kind of partnership you are looking for, maybe. Please feel free to make an announcement.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can contact me by searching Pickles, Piccles, with 2 C's, not a CK. We haven't bought cornichons yet, but that's coming as well. And you can search on LinkedIn. You can go to our website, contact us. We're actually going to be launching a brand new website this weekend. So that's the main thing that I'm working on right now. And right now we're really looking to get pickles in people's hands and have them use it with their audiences, get feedback from them, and start this learning process. Because you might mention it in your book, but how important it is to build, test, and iterate on that design to really start kind of the product development lifecycle. Having that regular source of feedback is incredibly important to know that you're going in the right direction and that you're building something that people really value and that they really like. And so if there was anyone who can imagine using Pickles with their internal team for marketing, their external team, we would love to collaborate and partner. So you can reach out on Pickles or my personal email. It's Chris, CHRIS @pickles.com.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much for your time and your beautiful energy. It was really nice to listen to you and ask a few questions. So I hope people will enjoy this interview. And I say thank you to everyone and bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah. This has been fantastic. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks.
Appreciate your time too.